feels weird not to talk at all. You know, I feel like I'm not even supposed to be here today. That's the mantra in Kevin Smith's 1994 cult classic, and that's exactly how the 22-year-old Smith probably felt day after day working right here at Quick Stop Groceries in an unassuming New Jersey strip mall, dreaming of one day becoming a filmmaker. Clerks tapped into something not often seen on the big screen. Young people in dead-end jobs who talked like real people. They were crude and rude, and above all, hugely relatable. There's a reason why everyone had a Clerks poster on their dorm room wall, and this is where it happened. At least most of it. Let's go to the map. Most of Clerks was shot here at Quick Stop Groceries in Leonardo, New Jersey. This is where Clerks hero Dante worked. Smith shot the film here for 21 consecutive nights. By day, he was remarkably still working at the store. The crew only had to travel next door for the other significant location, RST Video, where Randall, the acerbic foil to Dante, worked.
Hey, you're not allowed to rent here anymore. Yeah!
While the Quick Stop remains in business, the video store is no more. Then again, aren't virtually all video stores? And finally out here, there's a wall. But it's not just any wall. This is where we first met Jay, played by Smith's best friend Jason Mewes, and Silent Bob. And this is where I'm meeting up with the man himself, Kevin Smith.
So, Bob, you're a rude motherfucker, you know that? You're cute as hell.
Surreal doesn't begin to describe being with you, Kevin Smith, literally where your career was born. This is the wall. This is where it happened.
This is the wall where I leaned myself into a career. It's funny because time shrinks, like the older one gets, and to me, I'm like, oh, like I was just here, like because it's so incredibly familiar, not just to the movies, but this is where I spent my formative years. Like this was the kiln that fed the last 25 years, not just like that one movie, but like everything that I've done for a quarter of a century stewed here.
So you and Jason, Jay and Silent Bob, stood here for most of your portion of the film. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about standing out here with Jay?
Being irritated all the time because he was not an actor. You know, I'd always thought he was funny, and my whole life hanging out with him, I was like, God, somebody should put you in a movie, man. You're funny. And then one day I was like, oh, I'm that person. So when I think of this wall, like in the beginning, I think about me like constantly barking at Jason. And so he's passive aggressively fighting me, going like, there are fucking people walking around and looking at us, man. I feel stupid. And I'm like, just fucking do it. You do it all the time. You can handle this.
So what's striking to me this is my first time here. What's striking to me when I came here is how small, it's all here. It's literally like 30 feet is your set.
Yeah.
So let's walk here. Okay.
Yes.
So this is the wall. This is one key component.
Right.
We're already on the next key component.
There's the sign, the RST video sign. It's not even the key component to the film. It's how I got here. I saw an ad and I was like, oh my God, like the idea of working in a video store, like that's my dream. That was my highest aspiration. So when I came to interview here, Mr. Topper was next door at Quick Stop. And he's like, I see you have convenience store experience. From time to time, would you be willing to work the convenience store if we needed you to? And I was like, yeah, from time to time, absolutely. Hey man, like anything to get the job. But I was like, absolutely. But it was like a catfish situation. Like they brought me in, yes, like they brought me in with the video store, but I wound up predominantly working at Quick Stop. But that's like everything has to go so right.
Everything clicks.
You know what I'm saying? In order for me to like one day go, oh, this seems like you could shoot a movie here. Like it is a set and a sound stage. Like you've got your set here, your exterior, and your sound stage inside and here. We had 2 stages, 3 if you count the outside. And I was like, it might just be interesting enough to like get away with. And we wouldn't have got away with it if it weren't for the largesse of the folks that own the store saying like, go ahead.
Let's take the extremely long walk. This might
tough.
get us winded.
This was other than the movie walk, like this is the walk, you'd come out, you lock the door like Randall does, and then you walk past the slim apartment that's between the 2 stores.
Right, and the store. So before we go inside,
yes,
one key component of the film that you had to kind of write to, the gate was down the entire time. So what's the story on that?
We were shooting at night.
Right.
But the movie's set during a day. So it felt like the easiest fix was to just close the steel shutters, leave them closed, and then work it into the story somehow, like the local kids stuffed gum in the locks. And so that's why the steel shutters are closed. So Dante hangs a sign, says, I assure you we're open. You get one more joke out of it. Anytime we do a daylight shot, was shot during the day. So we came here to shoot the scene where, whoa, did you hear that? That's my influence on a local community. My mother would be so proud.
I think that's a quote from one of your movies.
Gotta be. It's gotta be. I can't even be like, hey, kid, keep up the good work, fan. Shall we go into...
Let's cool off.
Head on in. The bells still ring.
I would imagine the synapses fire like crazy when you walk in here.
Oh my God, yeah. This used to be freezer cases. So I remember, like, the night we did the fight scene, the boys are fighting in the aisle. There used to be bread in the aisle, and at one point, like, he hits him over the head with a loaf of bread. But I fell asleep on the freezer case while we were shooting the fight scene. And Scott Mosier, my producer, God bless him, was just like, he knew my work schedule. Like, I was working here from 6 until 10 in the morning, and then from 10 until 2 o'clock
no
I had
sleep
off.
for 3 weeks, basically.
From 2 o'clock till 10:30, I was working again. Then from 10:30 till 6 in the morning, we made the movie. And then from 6 in the morning till 10, I was back working again. So when I fell asleep making the flick, Scott's like, let him sleep, man. This ain't dialogue heavy. This is people hitting each other with bread.
Just turn the cameras on, we got it.
We got it. And so I didn't see all the elements of the fight scene of Clerks until we developed all of our dailies a month later.
Let's see what we got here.
I was so delighted. I was like, oh, this actually looks pretty good.
Maybe
like,
I should sleep on the set more.
Exactly. I fucked up the rest by being awake.
I don't know. So as we traverse through this giant set here, we're almost at the main event, which is, of course,
the counter, the hub.
Counter, yeah, the counter. Yes.
This is the when in the cathedral.
Let's turn around and take a look. Yeah.
This is the altar right here, man. I just turned 49. Like, standing behind the counter was absolutely one of the best times of my life. The easiest, the least amount of responsibility. Some people went to college. Like, I went to Quick Stop, and that's where I learned responsibility, and like, I had keys to this place. I got to lock up and stuff like that. But you were like a bartender, you were like a priest, and you were an entertainer. You could try out material. I mean, shit, not only did I try out material, my entire career is predicated on all the things that I did here over the course of like 3 or 4 years of my life. Yeah. So whenever I think of the real world, or all of my ties to the real world end here. If I have to be buried someplace, like, this would be it. Under a life-size bronze statue of myself.
Obviously, yeah.
And I think like a nice bronze plaque and his ashes are under this space would make so much sense. Everything good that has ever happened to me came from this job.
You're talking before about how like everything needs to click for something like this to happen. It's kind of a miracle that Clerks turned into what it did. And one of the aspects is the black and white. You maxed out the credit cards, you sold some of the comic books, and black and white was not an aesthetic choice, it was a budget choice.
Black and white was Dave Klein, our DP. He was like, you got fluorescent lights here. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we can't shoot under these, man. If we shoot under the fluorescents, everyone's gonna have green pallor. So we're gonna have to get a lighting package, which we didn't really include in our very minimal budget. Yeah. And I was like, how much is that? And he's like, it's another like $2,000. And I was like, oh man, I don't have that. Like, can't we just do it with one light or those lights? And he goes, if you want to shoot under fluorescents, you could shoot in black and white, and then it won't matter if it's green because there ain't no color in black and white. And I was like, all right. I was like, like, that's kind of film schooly, right? Like, black and white movie, like Hitchcocky and stuff. Like, all right, like, sure, why not? Let's do it. And it was a total budget decision, but when the movie was done and playing out there in the world, like, people would write about, like, the movie is in black and white as if shot from the perspective of the store security camera. And at that point, I read that and I was like, that's really clever. So whenever I did an interview, people would be like, why black and white? I was like, to kind of give it the feeling that we were shooting from the perspective of this, the security camera in this door. Just a little filmy thing. The timelessness of it, or the look of it being in black and white, not being an intention, being an accident, and yet being something that has fed the life of that movie and will feed it for another 25 years, is nuts. Everything could go wrong. Yeah. We make one weird decision, maybe nothing happens. And I always felt like if we had like done Clerks 1 year earlier or 1 year later, nothing would have happened at all. We just kind of had the perfect timing.
And it's taking you to another incarnation, Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Again, it must be surreal to reteam with all of your friends. Like, this is one like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where you've like brought in everybody, some new friends.
Yeah, it's a reunion movie of sorts. It is. I keep saying, like, it's like the greatest high school reunion you've never went to. That's kind of what reboot is.
Right.
Like, it really is this sums up the entire point of my career and my life to some degree and stuff. And of course, it has to include this place.
It's crazy. So many full circle moments. I feel like, I mean, I've had like goosebumps this whole day, and I can only imagine what it's like for you to keep coming back.
It's neat, and I'm not going to say like, you know, oh, it was manifest or whatever, but like, this was ironically the stuff that I dreamed about, like when I was sitting here making this movie. Yeah. When you were whimsying, when you were like really cutting loose and dreaming in the middle of a dream coming true, making a movie. You would think, like, what if people like really liked this movie, like, and it kept going, and years from now, like, people were still into it, and people would come to visit, like, Quick Stop because, like, we shot the movie there and stuff. Like, that was all deep cuts, like, oh, imagine if type stuff. And after, like, a quarter of a century, and to be honest with you, after the first 4 years, that stuff started, like, happening. It's just so nice that it's still happening to this day. A lot of locations we've shot at don't exist anymore. This one is still like here, 25 years in, and it's the most important one. So hopefully before they ever think about letting it go, they'll at least give me a bite at it. Because that was the, you know, the other thing where I'd sit around and whimsy. Imagine if is always like, well, like, there are worse ways to die than like coming back to the store.
I look forward to visiting you 50 years on and seeing the bronze statue with you still alive, you working behind the counter, bitching about the end of Return of the Jedi, do whatever.
That would not be a bad way to run out the clock.
To
It started my clock. I'm happy to end my clock with it. You a bag or
I
not?
love you, Jackie. Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
Done and done.
And a pack of cigarettes, too.